If you really want to do well on the SAT, it's not just about what you study, but how you do it. Hey guys, it's Jen. I'm the founder of Prep with Jen, a tutoring business specializing in standardized test prep, and I'm back here today to teach you how to self-study for the SAT. These are the same tips that I use with my students, so I really hope they help you as well. And I'm actually going to break this up into two parts. In the first part, we are going to focus on the pre-work. This is everything you have to do before you really start studying to set yourself up for success. Then in part two, we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty. I'll share with you specific resources you can use for every section of the exam, as well as tips on how to use the practice test to get the most out of them. So with that, let's get into today's video. The first thing you're going to need to do if you want to create a robust study plan is to establish an accurate baseline. Okay, so you're going to have to take a mock exam under testing conditions. Now, I know it's impossible to replicate the testing environment 100% at home, but there are definitely aspects of it that you can mimic, and I'll give you a couple of tips today. So I really want you to dedicate a Saturday morning around 8 a.m. to taking this test. You absolutely have to take it timed, and ideally, you would actually get somebody to proctor you, like a parent or a sibling. They're going to follow the timing calls of the actual exam. In the description box below, I'll include the timing guidelines for this test. I'll share with you the time allotted for every section, as well as the breaks, and I'll even include the proctor calls so they can, the proctor time warnings so they can follow along. Now, in terms of the actual test I want you to take, I do have some specific suggestions there as well. And the platform I want you to use for this mock is Khan Academy. So now I'm actually going to hop onto my computer and show you exactly what I want you to do. Here we are on Khan Academy's homepage. And if you don't already have an account, you can easily set one up using your email address. You can also link your College Board account so Khan Academy can have further insights into where you are. We're going to come up here to courses, and under test prep, you're going to click on SAT. Now you're going to be taken to the SAT page, and at the top, you'll see a bunch of menu items. For our mock, we're going to come to this full test tab. Click on that, and you'll see on the left-hand side a bunch of exams listed. There are 8 in total. Now, for whatever reason, they're written in reverse order, so you're going to come to the bottom. And for the mock, you're going to choose from tests 1, 3, 5, or 6. Tests 1 and 3 were never officially administered. They're purely for practice. And tests 5 and 6 were the first 2 exams for the new SAT to ever be given to students. Over time, the test has gone through a little bit of changes, but for the purpose of our mock for the baseline, these 4 tests will work great. I recommend you start from practice test 1. So we're going to click on that and then come to the top. And now you're pretty much ready to start. At the top, you'll notice they said after completing a section, you can stop or review, but I'm going to say no to that for this exercise. We're going to go all the way through all 4 sections. You're not going to stop except for the scheduled breaks. Now, once you click start the section, there should be a timer at the top that'll keep track of where you are so you can see how much time you have remaining. But again, I said if possible, I would encourage you to have a proctor who's also calling out the time. That just adds a little bit more pressure. That's very similar to what you'll experience on test day. So you're going to go through all 4 sections, and at the end of the calculator portion, you'll submit your answers and you'll actually get your scores back right away. That's one of the neat things about Khan Academy is that immediate feedback. We're going to ignore this optional essay portion for now. You can take it if you want to, but for the baseline, I just want to focus on the core exam. So after you get your score, you're going to come to this practice tab. Okay, and this is another cool feature in Khan Academy based on your practice exam results, based on the perceived weaknesses from that. Khan Academy semi-tailors your practice drills based on those results, based on the areas you need to focus on. Okay, so From this point on, for quite a while, I want you to avoid going back to that full test tab. You're not going to take any more practice exams. Instead, I want you to focus on drills, focus on getting those fundamentals really solidified, and then you can go back and revisit those tests, and that's how you're going to get more out of them. I have a lot of students who say, I've blown through all of these tests, I've done all of them, why has my score plateaued? The reason for that, it's not surprising. It's because they have not taken the time to really analyze their mistakes, to really learn what's tripping them up. So they're repeatedly falling for the same traps. And when you just take tests, what's happening is you are getting really proficient at making the same mistakes over and over again. And that's doing way more harm than good. Right? So once again, I want you to focus on practicing, building your skills before going through more practice tests. So now you've got your baseline, let's talk about that target score. A good target score is going to be challenging, but at the same time, it has to be realistic given the other constraints in your life. So you really want to look at how much time you have and how much energy you're honestly willing to spend dissecting this test and figuring all the ins and outs so you can improve your score. It is admirable to want a perfect score, but it's really not helpful if you're just going around saying, I want a 1600 without really understanding what it takes to get to that point. It's much more important that you set yourself up well rather than just be disappointed throughout the process, because then you might burn out or quit early, right? I can't tell you exactly what your target score should be. That's going to depend on a host of factors like what schools you're looking to get into and what your individual goals are. But what I can do is to share some guidelines about what it takes to reach your goal, given where you're starting from. And the way I want to do this is to look at your baseline score and break it into one of the following categories. So if you are currently scoring under an 1100, that usually indicates to me you have some fundamental gaps. Maybe you are particularly weak in the reading comprehension section. Maybe there are grammar rules you're just not familiar with, or there are math concepts that you never mastered that are super prevalent on the SAT. Whatever the reason is, you're going to have to deep dive and fill in those fundamental gaps. In part 2, I am going to share with you specific resources that will help you target each of these sections, but just know that this is not a process you can rush. You definitely can't cram this in weeks or even months. You have to be patient with yourself because you are trying to build skills. All right, this next group of kids, you're falling in between the 1100 and maybe even up to 1400. This is really what I consider that sweet spot. For you guys, you will really benefit from test-specific strategies, right? To me, your skills, your fundamentals, your foundation, it's probably okay. Now, some of yours will be a little bit more solid than others, right? If you're at the higher range, that 1400, you're going to have a pretty solid foundation. As opposed to those of you in the 1100s, you also may need to boost that fundamentals, just like the earlier group I mentioned. And for everybody, right, the amount you're going to improve is going to correlate very much so with how much effort you put in and time and energy you put into studying for this test. But I also want to now address some of your high flyers out there, the kids scoring over 1400 baseline. You're the ones who probably want to shoot for that 1550 plus. All right, so here is some harsh truth about the SAT. The higher up you go on that scale, the harder it's going to be to improve. And the reason is the test becomes far more unforgiving at the top. Also, there is a bit of luck involved at the highest level. If you're shooting for that 1600, you essentially cannot make a single mistake. If you get really lucky, you can maybe make one mistake, but if you're not lucky, that one missed question could cost you 20 plus points. So with that, there are certain things we really can't control. What I want you to do is just to focus on doing the best you can. Know that, the last couple of points may be really difficult to get, but they may not even be necessary, right? So for you as well, I want you guys to focus on testing strategies, really pinpointing exactly what you're missing, and looking for patterns throughout the different exams to figure out how to never make those mistakes again. All right, guys, so that is it for part 1 of this series. Hopefully you learned some good tips. This will establish a solid foundation for you to build on, and you can create a very good study plan from here. If you like this video, please do subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to be notified of part 2, because that one's going to get really interesting with a lot of information about what you can do to get yourself ready for testing. I hope to see you there.